if the market is not competitive, that means when there's some good firms, there are bad firms, right? And then the good firms will be able to produce at a lower price, and then that will force some of these not performing so well firms to exit the market. Right? This is another reason why it's good. And then think about that. Like if you are a business, like if you are a firm, that if you are running at a very efficient level, and then the other firms may not be able to compete with you. And so if they cannot compete, they will kind of like exit the market. And when they exit, they will have the resources left behind. And maybe you can have access to those resources, and so that you can be larger, bigger expansion, right? You can have expansion using that resources, and you can achieve internal economy of scale as your size of your firm grows. So additional source of gain from trade. As production is concentrated towards better performing firms, the overall efficiency of the industry improves. And and this is why we can see better performing firms have a greater incentive to engage in international trade. And this is how we find in Chinese data too. And you will find that those firms that participate in international trade are the better firms, are the more efficient firms. All right, they are more efficient firms. And you will also see the phenomenon that the very competitive, the very efficient Chinese firm, once they participate in international trade, they will be able to capture more markets because the overseas market are there, right? When they expand to foreign markets, then the market for the firm expands. As the market for the firm expands, the firm grow larger. When it grows larger, they will be able to produce at a lower cost, and they will be even more competitive. And because of that, when you are looking at their home market, right? When you're looking at Chinese home market, and as this firm, the firm that joins the international trade, as they grow larger and more efficient, and they become even more competitive at home as well. And it will be harder for the other Chinese firm to compete with them. And then they are just like dead, right? If you look at the cell phone industry, right, there are over 20, 30 cell phone makers in China. I think there could be even more in the past, like 15, 20 years ago. There will be very many, maybe unknown names of cell phone makers in the market. And eventually, the better ones like Xiaomi and Huawei, or if you heard about the OnePlus 7, or I mean the OnePlus, yeah, I think the name is OnePlus. And yeah, so only a few of them are strong enough to participate in international trade. They sell to overseas, and then they become stronger. And eventually, many of these smaller size, not so efficient cell phone makers are eventually being driven out of the market. And when they are driven out of market, maybe some of the engineer they use are good, right? For some reason, maybe they are just not competitive because maybe because their manager is not very good. But they left behind the resources, and Huawei, Xiaomi, firms like that can capture those resources and grow larger. Well, this is how it works in many industries as well, not just cell phone industry. All right, this is what it says, right? Better performing firms have greater incentive to engage in global economy because that's how they grow their size even larger and make themselves even more efficient. Okay. All right. In imperfect competition, firms are aware, they know that they can influence the price of their product and that they can sell more only by reducing their price, right? If they want to sell more, they have to reduce their price. This situation happens when there are only a few major producers of a particular goods, or when each firm produces a good that is differentiated from their rival firm, their competition, their competitors. Each firm views itself as a price setter, choosing the price of its product. And how do they do that? So few more definition, we're gonna go through the mechanism, the mathematical mechanisms, how they do that. And typically, when we are referring to competitive market, usually we have the two cases. One is we have a monopoly, only firm that they do the only thing, right? Um, yeah, like Microsoft, almost a monopoly. If we don't have Apple, then Microsoft will be almost a monopoly for operating system. Okay, we have Apple here, but still Apple is relatively small compared to the users of Microsoft Windows. So a monopoly is an industry with only one firm, so only one player in the game. And oligopoly is an industry with only a few firms. Yeah, so I think cell phone industry is one of this. We might have like 4 players, 5 players, the large ones, but not many others, right? Eventually, it will be even less, I guess. When people are thinking about cell phone makers in the global market, the name that they come up with, like this big four or big five, are typically just Samsung, Apple, Huawei, and Xiaomi. And there's some other smaller makers. Vivo, it could be large too, but I think it is still not comparable to the size of the biggest four. And there are other players in Malaysia, Indonesia, India, but they are not big. Okay, so yeah, so to sell more in an oligopoly, a firm must lower the price of all units, not just the additional unit. Right? If you want to sell more, you have to lower the price for all the units. You will not be able to capture. So if you remember the supply demand curve, right? This cross curve, right? This cross curve. At a monopoly, if you are the single only firm in the market, you will set your price and you will find you will set a price in order to capture every consumer surpluses. You want to capture every surplus that you can. But for an oligopoly firm, it's the story is a bit different. So you have to, in order to make a sales, right, you have to lower the price of all units, not just one additional unit. You will not be able to capture as much consumer surpluses to turn it into your own surpluses compared to a monopoly market. So the marginal revenue function, therefore, lie below the demand function. There is a marginal revenue curve that is lie below the demand curve. We will show you how this works. Why is lying below the demand curve? So we will have a very simple setup here. So the setup is this. So we will have to draw. We will have to find graphically how to represent a demand curve and how to represent a marginal cost curve, and how to represent the marginal revenue curve, and then how they all interact in a graph. Now assume that the demand curve, of course we know demand curve is downward sloping, right? Line that is like going from the left down to the right. The demand curve is a straight line, Q equal to A minus BP, where Q is the number of units the firm sells. P is the price per unit, and A and B are constants. All right, so this Q equation, it's a very typical one and a straightforward one. The idea is very simple, right? Suppose this is rice, to make it simple, this is rice or bread. And so if the price is higher, then you buy less. If the price is lower, you buy more. Basically, your demand is going down as the price uh, going up. Okay, and the marginal revenue curve is this. Marginal revenue equal to P minus Q over B. How do we get this? So, so let me just go through it together with you. And I don't have my iPad with me because it's in the office, and I'll try to do something else. I cannot really write on it, and I will try to show you in a different way. So let's see how we can do it. So if okay, let me use this. It's not perfect. I think writing is more natural than typing, but we use what we got anyway. So let's bring this down and let me share the screen. Share my desktop. Okay, I guess I did share. Okay, so this is the quantity demand, right? Q equal to A minus B times P. All right, that's our equation. And then when we are having a graph that it's like um, that it's like this, we have the price on the y-axis and we have the quantity here, right? So we want to show the relationship between between price and Q, like some graphical relationship, right? So we want to put P on the Y and Q on the X, and so uh, yeah, so how come it's gone? I have that open before, but anyway, yeah. So we want to show that, and this is how it works. So we want to put P on the Y and Q on the X, right? So for the equations like this, we know our wait, how come it's gone? Okay, can you see the programs I'm using? I just want to make sure you can see the other programs that I'm using, just in case. So so basically, what here means that the Q equal to A minus B times P, and that's the quantity demand equations, right? When P goes up, because minus P is negative, so when price is higher, then you demand for less. And because we want to show them on a graph that is represented by P on the y-axis and Q on the x-axis, right? So then we just try to play it around, and then we will have we can move the so simplify so for variable p, so we can put p into this equation, right? P equal to um, you put p on the left hand side, put q on the right hand side, you have this equation, okay? And right, so I think it's easy to understand, but p on the here, and then you just say put everything else on the other side, And now, and P is this. So we have to define the revenue, right? Revenue R, revenue. So we just call it R, revenue, equals to P times Q. This is how much your revenue is, right? The price of the good multiplied by the quantity of the good. You have P multiplied by Q. That's the revenue, right? So if P is this, Q is this, then you can write R as this. This is P, right? Multiplied by Q. Okay? So you have this equation. Okay? So, and then what we're gonna do is we can differentiate. Okay, so we can differentiate this equation by marginal revenue. Is that when you increase your sales by 1 unit and how much the revenue is gonna be. This is marginal revenue. So you differentiate revenue with respect to Q. So you're gonna do the R, the Q. And the R, the Q is basically differentiate with the derivative, partial differentiation with respect to Q. So you will have this equation here, right? This equation here. Okay. So if you look at this equation and this equation, they are same. You have the minus Q over P over B, right? Minus Q over B. And here is minus Q over B. And this is A minus Q over B. A minus Q over B basically it's P, right? It's P. So we have the P here. You see? This is the P, right? A minus Q over B. So you just replace this P here, all right? Okay, so you have the marginal revenue, all right? So you see that, right? So you see that now. So basically, you just find the total revenue and differentiate the total revenue by Q, and then you have the marginal revenue, all right? And why we are saying the marginal revenue curve lies below the demand curve, because whatever you demand, right? Whatever you demand, the price, there's a price referring to demand. Think about this is the price that they charge, right? The price P. And the price P will minus some positive number here anyway, because A and B are positive constants, and this number is going to be positive. If they are positive, then the marginal revenue will be below P somewhere. Okay? Will be below P. So that's why we have a marginal revenue curve below the price point. Any price point, it's going to be below. Right? So now we have the idea that the marginal revenue lie below the demand curve, because every demand curve refers to a price, and the price minus some number will give you the marginal revenue. Now, let's see. The marginal cost is the cost of producing an additional units of output, and we assume they are constant, the marginal cost curve. What is the marginal cost curve? When you are thinking about making bread, so marginal curve is the flour, sugar, yeast, water, milk, butter you use to make bread. Those are marginal cost curve. When you make additional 1 units of bread, then your input of flours, butters, sugars are same. So we assume marginal cost curve is same. And then we will have a marginal cost curve like this. This is the input variable price for marginal cost. And what is here? So for a monopoly, for oligopolistic competition market or monopolistic competition market, right? Only few firms, you can set price. Products are differentiated because you have a say on your product. You can be a price setter for your own products. Then how do you maximize your profit, you set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. So the additional units you produce, the cost will equal to the additional uh, revenue you sell. So you equalize them, you set your production quantity at that level. And this is your production level, this is your supply, you supply this much to the market. And at this level, this is your average cost, right? This is how much it costs you to produce. So this area, this rectangular area, is the total cost that you have to pay for your production. Okay, and this is the price you charge, and this is the total revenue you will have, and the total revenue minus the total cost. Average cost multiplied by the number is the total cost, right? And this is the revenue you can get, the positive revenue you can get from your operation. Okay. And continuing looking at the cost. So we talk about marginal cost, right? Marginal cost C. And the total cost is going to be your fixed cost, your rental, your equipment, your assets, and everything, right? You have to pay for those things. And that's the total cost. Total cost is the fixed cost plus the variable cost, the marginal cost here, C, the small c, multiplied by the quantity of production. So you have to pay the rental, and you have to pay for the number of breads you are making, and this is the marginal cost of the bread it will cost you to make. So when it combined together, it's the total cost. All right. And what is the marginal? I mean, what is the average cost? Well, basically, you just divide the total cost by Q, and if you divide the equation by Q, you will have the average cost here. The average cost is the cost of production C, the total cost divided by the total quantity of production Q. And you will have this, right? The fixed cost over Q plus the marginal cost. Marginal cost is not changing because it's just a constant. As we say, the flour costs you the same. And now, so what is different now is that the fixed cost is divided by Q, all right? It means we can see from the equation, the more you produce, okay, the higher is the Q, all right? The lower the average cost it will be, because the fixed cost is going to be divided by the number of the total output you have. Okay, you can see that, right? The more you produce, the lower the average cost is going to be. Okay, so if you're making bread, you make 1,000 bread, you still have to pay for the rent, right? The rent is still feel something as a cost to you, right? If you pay $2,000 rent, you make 2,000 breads a month, the rent is still something. But if you're paying $2,000 as rent, but you are making 200 million breads from that rental place, when you share the rental cost for every unit of production of bread, it feels nothing, right? It feels nothing. So what is important is only the marginal cost of bread. You don't really care about the rental anymore because you're making millions and millions of breads. That's the idea. All right, so graphically, this is how we can show it. As the output increases, the average cost will come down, and it will be eventually getting very, very close to your marginal cost. It will never touch the marginal cost, but it will be very close. Unless you are making infinite number of breads, that's not possible, right? That's not possible given the market demand. We have only how much? 6 billion people, 7 billion people on Earth, so it's not infinite, right? So we cannot be infinite. I'm just joking. But anyway, so it will get very close to marginal cost curve, but it's not going to touch it. All right. Any questions? All right, monopoly. The last slice of monopoly. The profit maximizing output happens where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. That's the key point. When you solve for the solution for the output Q for monopoly, you set marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. At the intersection of the MCMR, marginal cost and marginal revenue curve, the revenue gain from selling an additional units equal to the cost of producing that unit. The monopolist earns some monopoly profit as indicated by the shaded box when P is greater than the AC. Here we go. This shaded area, that's the monopoly profit. All right, let's see how monopolistic competitions works. Monopolistic competition is a simple model of an imperfect competitive industry that assumes that each firm can differentiate its product from the product of the competitor. So it's kind of like a little monopoly powers on your product because you are different than the other competitors' product, right? I'll try to use the cell phone story. So I would say cell phones are more or less alike. They are more or less the same. But someone may be a hardcore Apple fan. They only buy Apple phones. They only buy Apple computers. They don't think about anything else. So for that reason, so Apple will still have some kind of monopoly powers, right, for their products, because they know that when they charge an unfair price compared to their competitors, there are still some hardcore fans that will still buy Apple products, right? They can set the price, and maybe this is a way that I can put monopolistic competitions and product differentiation, because Apple phone is different from Xiaomi phone, and the hardcore Apple fans will come up with a million reasons why Apple phone is better. So they might pay any price for an Apple phone when basically there's not much difference in reality, but they'll still find millions of reasons to justify their purchase. Okay. All right. A firm in a monopolistic competitive industry is expected to sell more as the total sales in the industry increases and as the price charged by the rivals increases. Okay, so there is still a bit of substitution effects there. So for example, in a monopolistic market, let me put it this way, you will sell more Xiaomi phones if the total sales of the industry increases. If more people are buying phones, the growing number of consumers, right, buying phones, then they will buy Apple phones, they will still buy Xiaomi phones, and most of them will increase in number of sales. And if the price charged by the rivals increases, if Apple charge for more prices, if they double the prices, maybe there is still some hardcore Apple fans. They will still pay for iPhone even the price is double. All right, but some of them might give up. Some of them may not be as hardcore as the other Apple fan. They will be like, oh, that's too expensive for me. I'm not gonna buy. I will give up. I'll buy Xiaomi phone. So this is different from a perfect competition, because the perfect competition is like if you charge 1 cent different, right? Even 1 cent different than the competition, and nobody will buy from you because products are same. And in the monopolistic competition, because products are differentiated from each other, even though they're still phone, even though they still function more or less the same, but they can charge the price differently. Okay, they might lose some customer, but not all. And here's the case, right? If the competition charge higher price, you will have more sales. if the industrial-wide grow, you will have more sales. On the other hand, less as the number of firms in the industry decreases. Okay, your sale is decreased as the industry decreases, and as the other firm increase, as the firm's price increases. If you charge more, your sales will decrease. Okay, not like gone completely, but decrease. These concepts are represented by the function. So this is how we model a simple way to model monopolistic competition. All right, and here is the equation is a little bit different from the textbook by the symbol, because on the PPT here, the PowerPoint, maybe the publisher, they don't know how to find a way to put a bar on top of P as the price for the industry average. So they couldn't do that. So they just put 2P there. So I just change it by myself to a small p, indicating that for your price, and it's capital P as the industrial price. So what does this demand equation say? Well, just for comparison, all right, this is the way we model monopolistic competition. And this is a very simple way. In the past, this is the monopoly. Well, this is different than this setup, monopoly setup. This is the monopoly setup, all right? Okay, Q equal to A minus BP, B times P. And this is the monopolistic competition setup. Q equal to S divided by, multiplied by 1 over N minus B times B times P. So let's just look at the key point here. S is the total sales of industry. Okay, total sales of industry. So X divided by N means that if you have the number of firms in the industry is N, so each firm will be shared equally by the industry. If this is 0, right? When this is 0, it means that your price, you charge a price that is equal to the industrial average price. You charge a price that is equal to the other competition, right? The other people charge $1 for a bread, you charge $1. So your price and your competition's price is same. Then this term will become 0. And since this term is 0, everyone is gonna share by 1,000 people buying bread, eating bread in the morning in Wujiaocang. Then if there's 10 stores selling breads, then every store will share about 100 customers, 100 sales, right? That's the idea. But now, the feature of this equation is here. Even if you charge a slightly different price than your competition, suppose your price P is higher than the industry P, okay? You will still make some sales. If people still prefer your bread, it's like you have a ABC bread company, like bakery, and some people like your bread. Even if you charge a higher price than it, they will still buy from you because they just like your bread. They just prefer your bread. Maybe the shape is different. They just like the shape. And now your sales will be decreased by a magnitude of B multiplied by P. So B here represents a constant term that it shows the responsiveness of the firm's sales to price. Okay. So if the responsiveness is 0 here, so that means it doesn't matter how you set your price, you will still share the industry. You will equally still share the industry. That means you still have the 100 customers buying your bread no matter how much price you charge, right? You still share it. and so P basically measures the responsiveness. Okay. Now P is the price you charge. The capital P is the average price that charged by the industry. All right. So this is what we are saying, right? Assume that the firms are symmetric, they are same, all firms face the same demand function and have the same cost function, and therefore all firms should charge the same price. And if they charge the same price, then each one will have the equal share in the market, right? Sales divided by N. Okay. Yeah. So average cost should depend on the size of the market. So we just play around a little bit with the equation here, right? AC is the average cost. So you see where is the average cost, by the way. So we will show you the previous equation. So here, AC equal to fixed cost divided by Q. Okay, divided by Q. Q is the number of production, right? Now, excuse me, we replace this Q by this Q, right? If the prices are charged the same, then every firm are shared equally with the market, the sales. Then Q is sales divided by the number of firms. And we can put the Q, we can replace the Q here. Then we can eventually simplify to N multiplied by fixed cost divided by sales plus D. So what does this mean? It says that in this equation, right, it says the average cost should depend on the size of the market and the number of firms. Well, when the number of firms increases, keeping the sales of the industry fixed. So just consider S is fixed. If there are more firms into the market, then your average cost will increase. How do we understand this? Well, it says that your average cost is higher when there are more people selling breads in the market. It makes sense when you are thinking this in terms of economic scale. Right, listen. So we're saying this. You can achieve lower cost when you are able to produce more goods in a firm. If your firm size is large, you will be able to produce cheaper, right? Your average cost is cheaper. But if there are more competition in the market, the share you can get from the market will decrease because there are more suppliers in the market. When your sales decreases, when your typical firm, right, your company have less share, has less sales compared to before, right? There are more people in the market selling bread. Then you will be able to sell less. If you are selling less, your average cost is higher. You lose the economy of scale internally in your firm. That's the idea. Average cost is high when there are more firms in the market. Okay. All right. As the number of firms and in the industry increases, the average cost increases for each firm because each produce less. As the total sales X in the industry increases, suppose keeping the number of firms fixed, right? It's fixed. If the sales of the industry increases, if more people in Wujiaochang start liking bread, they don't eat congee rice in the morning or other things, but they switch their consumption to bread. Then the sales of bread increases. The sales of so more people are buying bread. then the average cost decreases for each firm because each produce more. Right? Oh, okay. Time flies, and yeah. So, okay, we stop here, and I'll let you go.